Folks, you need to understand something. It's very hard for Eric and me to be serious when we're together. No, this is actually, that is the challenge. There's no intellectual challenge here. There is that. It is so bad, right. I'm serious. Right. My wife is a witness. We were invited, and it was an unbelievable.
By the way, wasn't I supposed to interview you?
Yes, but this is a preface. You know what? Yes, it's a preface to your interviewing me. And don't show people
the soles of your shoes. That's considered rude in parts of the Middle East and New York.
He's right. So we were invited. It was my wife and I. Your wife didn't happen to accompany, but she, of course, was there were 3 couples invited. That was it. To have dinner with the Vice President of the United States and his wife and his daughter. It's a very intimate dinner, and it begins with my looking at the Vice President of the United States and asking him, why did you invite Eric Metaxas?
That's true.
Now, you have to understand something. I really like the Vice President, but he's not a knee slapper. Okay?
Right.
It's hard to imagine joking around.
It's not his job to be presidential. That's Trump's job, to be a knee slapper, and I think he succeeds.
Yes.
And okay. I say that as a fan of the man.
All right. So I just wanted you to know this is we're very bonded, and we really enjoy each other a great deal. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Metaxas.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have so much I want to say, but unfortunately, I'm supposed to interview Dennis. Dennis said that, ostensibly, the goal of this time, we're going to be talking about Dennis's new book on Genesis, part of the Rational Bible. There's a little chutzpah, titling your book The Rational Bible. But Dennis made it clear to me that if everybody doesn't walk out of this room burning to get a copy of that book, I will have failed.
Correct.
And I thought,
look, he's not doing well anyway. Look at this; he has a patch on his jacket.
And I thought,
try to help him out.
If Jordan Peterson can wear a sneaking vest, I can wear some patches. All right, I may not have his degrees, but good enough. Listen, but if I'm going to push your book, I figure it's only fair to push my book, Donald Drains the Swamp. So if you are not burning. If you're not burning to get a copy of this on your way out, Dennis will have failed.
That's right.
So we'll leave it there.
You should get it.
Dennis, I love you so much that this is really going to be tough. The vice president, being from the Midwest, had a very hard time with a Brooklyn Jew and a Queens Greek going at each other's throats in a humorous way. He and the second lady were not comprehending for the first half.
Right.
And the very sweet-natured pastor and author Max Lucado did not know what hit him.
Right. That's right.
But we're not sorry, are we?
Not really.
We're not sorry. All right. I've got some questions for you, fortunately. Aren't you glad, when I keep saying PragerU, 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 aren't you glad that your parents weren't named Lipschitz?
You have that is so intelligent. There is no month that goes by that I do not say something like that to my wife. What if my name were Rabinowitz?
Rabinowitz
you.
That appeals to everybody.
Lipschitz, you. There was a guy in my bunk at Jewish camp, Schmuckler. Schmuckler, you wouldn't get anywhere. No, I want you to know this is eerie that this is so Metaxian and so accurate to have pointed this out. Seriously, there is so much luck in life. I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't like it either, but I'm a big realist. There is luck in life and there is God in life. Both are true. They don't negate each other. God made a world where things can happen. I am so lucky my name is Dennis Prager. It is. I've thought about that for the radio. What if my name were, Yerachmiel Schmuckler? Welcome to the Yerachmiel Schmuckler show. I don't know if it would have caught on.
Or Shlomo Cohen?
Shlomo Cohen, no, that's a possibility.
That's Cohen, a possibility, all right.
No, Cohen
well,
is that. And
as
anyway,
a Greek name Metaxas, I'm every day thrilled my last name is not Stephanopoulos, right? So,
right. Or Papadopoulos. Right.
Now, since we were going to talk about Genesis in your book, I think it would be unseemly not to at least glancingly reference the previous session with Jordan Peterson.
Sure.
That's all I had to say about it.
Okay.
No, I think this is for the evangelical Christians in the audience. What he said about how would you dare say you believe in God? Because I want to ask you about this. And you were, it was amazing. It was an amazing session.
Yeah.
And I thank God. He said a few things that I want to touch on eventually, but let's just start. Let's start at the beginning. How about Genesis?
By the way, can I comment on the belief in God comment?
I'll allow that.
Thank you. That was it was very profound. He's a very profound man, and it's not common, unfortunately. And I don't know if it's in Genesis or Exodus. It's hard for me to remember, but I have a very long essay, because there are a lot of essays within the verses where I develop an idea at length, and it is that if someone tells me they believe in God, I know nothing about them. So I so resonated to that, because that is true. I know nothing. So the very notion, first of all, I remember when I began radio, and it was very much into the self-realization movement in the United States. I began radio in the 80s. And people would call up, so I would ask, do you believe in God? Yes, I do. I said, I'm just curious. Is this God outside of you or inside of you? Inside of me. So then you believe in you. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not attacking you. You believe in you. Then I would ask her another question. Does this God judge you? No. This God loves me. But does this God judge you? No. Who judges you? I do. So then you don't believe in the same God as I do. When someone says they believe in God, you got to ask them which one. What does that mean? And then, but what he was really referring to is people will believe in God, but don't do anything that God seems to instruct. So do they really believe in God? By their fruit you shall know them. That's my belief. Okay, so thank you. It was a very important point that he raised that you noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Well, it's interesting because we're talking about belief in God. What I always say is the devil believes in God. He just doesn't love God and trust God and serve God and bow the knee to God. There's a difference. And you can have an intellectual belief in God, and it's frankly meaningless, just as you said. But a lot of times when people have what they call intellectual problems or rational issues with the Bible or God, the first place they go, they don't need to get beyond the first few chapters of Genesis. And I know how I would answer those things. I don't know what a Jewish answer might be, and I certainly don't know what your particular answer might be. So let me ask you, and you don't have to answer definitively, but I'm curious if somebody says to you, hey, you don't believe that Adam and Eve and the snake and all that stuff happened literally. Do you?
So I address that issue.
But will you address it now?
No.
Okay.
No, I
just wanted a yes or no.
That'll get people to get the book. No. I address it in the book. If you really want to know, get the book.
Right.
All right, there goes. So I have a feeling, and I felt this, and I feel it as the book comes out this Tuesday. I have a feeling this will not satisfy anybody, ironically. But I don't think it's an important question. I believe God gave these first 5 books. They are the central documents of both Judaism and Christianity. Everything is based on it. Everything. From the creation of the world to the 10 Commandments, to the Exodus, to love God, that's there. That's in Deuteronomy and Numbers. There is Love your neighbor, that's in Leviticus. The founders of this country took a verse from Leviticus to put on the Liberty Bell. You shall proclaim liberty throughout throughout the land, yes, to all its inhabitants. And I got to go from the Hebrew. It takes a little while.
Who doesn't, right? Am I right? You think you're so smart.
I don't know Greek for New Testament, so I don't claim any other great linguistic knowledge. But I do.
Are you familiar with the phrase Yeshua HaMashiach?
Sorry about it?
No, I got that wrong. I would never say that again.
He's awesome. Okay. I got Yeshua HaMashiach. I heard you. Yeah. So, all right. So, in all seriousness, my Orthodox rabbi teacher of Torah at yeshiva in New York, Orthodox, completely Orthodox in belief and in practice, said you do not have to take the Garden of Eden story literally. That was his position, and it is not. I don't know if it's normative, but it
sounds Unitarian.
No, Unitarian. No, he would be the last guy to be a Unitarian. I'm the last guy to be a Unitarian. The issue to me is it from God?
Right.
Not is it literal? Is it literal is not critical. Let's say it is. Okay, so I believe it literally. By the way, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with someone who does. If God could create the world, He could create an animal that could talk. Isn't that obvious? I mean, it's not like this is a real puzzle. Oh, I get it. God created the universe, but He couldn't make an animal talk. I mean, that's absurd. If you believe God created the universe, He could do whatever He wants. But the issue is what did the serpent say is infinitely more important than whether a serpent said it. That's what matters. So we the believers, we often get tripped up. These people throw these questions because you're totally trapped. If you say literal, oh my God, folks, you're going to take this guy seriously? He believes serpents talk. And if we say no, oh, then how do you believe in the text? You don't even take it literally. But literal is not the issue. It isn't the issue like it isn't the issue with Yom, the word day. On the day you will eat it, you will die. And so God says this to Adam, right? On the day you eat from the tree of knowledge. But on the day he ate from it, he didn't die. Yom obviously means on that day you will become mortal. It doesn't mean you will die. Day is used as Psalm says, one day in God's eyes is 1,000 years and hours. We are fighting the wrong battles. That's what happens when these things are raised. It's like when I was in high school. The local cynic would go, "Oh, Dennis, you believe God is omnipotent?" I go, "Yeah, yeah. Can God make a rock so heavy He can't lift it?" So that's genius. The guy thought he was a genius for asking a question with a self-negating. Of course, there's no answer to the question. It's an absurd question. So that's how I look at this. It's not relevant. What is relevant is, what does God want me to know about life in the Garden of Eden story? That is what I wrote my text.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. They got it.
I was thinking of something Jordan Peterson said, and I just tuned out. If you don't mind repeating that. You don't, never mind.
Okay.
Of course I heard what you said. Sheesh. The issue of the fall, and again, we could talk about anything, but you wrote this book about Genesis. And Genesis, it's kind of like the stem cells of the Bible. There's just stuff there that is so deep, and you don't really need to go past chapter 3. You could spend forever just talking about that. So when we talk about the fall, you're very well aware that Christians like me have a certain take on that. And then there are people, I don't know who coined the Latin phrase, felix culpa, the happy fall, the idea that somehow this ended up being a good thing because God could redeem us by creating a people called the Jews, and on and on and on. What is your take on the fall? Was it avoidable? Was it part of God's initial plan? Was it plan B? How do you see it?
That's not Jewish language, but it's not language that I object to.
Well, that's why.
See, we have sound effects for these interviews.
That was,
by the way.
And by the way, that
was perfect.
That was too soon.
Was it?
I asked for that.
Oh, all right. I thought as soon as you said the fall.
I was going to pretend to break this over your head when you said something, and you.
All right, we blew it.
It's just the Ritz-Carlton. They're not going to get this stuff right. So the reason I ask that is because I am well aware that I'm fascinated by the idea, Dennis, that I and many Christians, not all, but people that I would consider serious Christians, have a certain view, and I am curious about how you frame that and how you think of that, because the fall is ultimately meant to be somehow sad. Milton obviously was a Christian and ends the Paradise Lost with wandering steps and slow through Eden took their solitary way. You want to weep. And I just wonder how do you and how do wise rabbis frame that?
There's no normative Jewish answer to it, nor do I present my. I don't present my Rational Bible commentary as a Jewish text. Clearly, I've been affected by my Jewish learning, but I show quite a number of times where I differ with traditional rabbinic takes on. For example, just quickly, the two midwives were told by Pharaoh to kill all Jewish boys and throw them in the Nile. And they refused to, and that one of the greatest lines in the Bible, because the midwives feared God. And by the way, I write there, it doesn't say the midwives loved God. People are animated, I think, to do the right thing at least as much by fear of God as by love of God. I'm a big fan of fear of God, because then you don't fear other things. You don't fear people. In America today, you don't fear the left. I don't fear the left because I fear God. So I don't give a damn what the left says. And that's just a factor. It's a big factor. So anyway, what is the traditional Jewish understanding is that the midwives were actually the family of Moses, that they were Hebrews, and I have virtually no doubt that they were Egyptian, that they were not Hebrews. So I don't offer a normative Jewish. Jews enjoy it and are benefiting from it as they should, but I don't present it as, and it isn't standard Jewish take. But it's also obviously not a Christian take. So you're asking me how this person takes what happened. God made people. I'll tell you the part. This I'll have you answer actually. This because I've never quite understood this. Sin is introduced, tell me if I'm wrong, sin is introduced according to Christian theology with the fall, right? With their eating from the tree.
Right.
Okay. I've never understood that because they were free to sin. Sin wasn't introduced, in my understanding of the text, with the eating of the tree. It was introduced with the creation of Adam and Eve, who could sin by eating from the tree. They were capable of sin, and in fact, the only sin they could commit, they were only prohibited from doing one thing, and that's the one thing they did. So how did they introduce sin? Is God introduced the possibility of sin when he made Adam and Eve.
See, this is why I love this guy. You're profound and you're wise, and that's really ultimately, I guess, a way of flattering myself, because I was just going to say, you're the only person besides myself who's ever asked that question. And it seems so obvious, doesn't it, Dennis? You ask it, and it's obvious to you, and it's obvious to me, but no one ever asked that question.
Sue, what does your mom say about me?
That's brilliant. I'm going to say that. And this, Sue, this is your...
That's
Sue, by the way, one of Dennis's wives, right? Am I getting that right?
Correct. Yes.
I just want to be very clear. What are you, number
that is
3?
Correct.
I don't... Anyway, she's sweet.
I have no issue with that.
It'll last.
All right, so let me tell you, I'm neither proud nor ashamed, obviously, but you have to laugh at your own life. In Sue's ring, it says 003. Not all of you found that funny, and I totally get that. We find it very funny.
Well, no, you know why?
I love her for the fact that she could laugh at it. Folks, it's not what I planned. I intended to be a good married one time forever till I die man. It didn't work out that way. So you have two choices in life when things don't work out the way you hope they would. You either lament it or you move on and do as much good as you can. That's it. That's the way it is in life.
You know, what I intended just as a quick, cheap shot, he turned into a wise thing. I hate you for that.
You didn't intend it as a good,
yes,
cheap shot.
But
it was
Sue,
a very funny line.
What your mother said, and by the way, this is your first mother. I just want to be clear because, I know you people, you have different rules. Say that again so I can repeat it because it's really beautiful. And in a weird way, it does sum up your husband's genius. Go ahead. There goes Dennis saying something so obvious I never would have thought of it. Is that not brilliant? And that's the mother-in-law of this guy. All right, so seriously, Dennis, your question about sin, you are exactly right. And why have I never had this question before? Because there's so many other questions that people never get to this. But the question of Adam and Eve choosing to eat the fruit, it's rather obvious that their disposition, it could be argued that their disposition was already sinful before they ate the fruit.
Yes.
And no one ever talks about that.
Right. So now you know my approach. And if you want a standard Jewish text, you'll be disappointed. If you want a standard Christian text, I call it the rational Bible as a believer in God and the Bible. Putting aside thousands of years, not disregarding it. There's much profundity in past commentaries. But I didn't allow that to be my guide. They could be my help, but not my guide. What does reason in a believer say is in the text? And if it isn't there, I just don't insert it. What I think we are learning from this text is, even if we were in utopia, we humans would prefer suffering and freedom to and mortality even to living in utopia. That's the genius of it. I call it. I said I think I write. I'm not arguing with the word the fall, but my term would be the choice.
Wow. From my point of view, that's pure heresy. But I believe in religious liberty.
You certainly
you're
do.
You're free to believe heretical, even evil, harmful things. That's your freedom in America.
That's correct.
But I don't think religious liberty is going to last long, and you're going to be in trouble soon if I get my way. Look, I think it would be silly not to ask you, because I don't know that everyone here knows the answer, and I don't really. It's an amazing thing to take it upon yourself to write a commentary of the Bible. Tell us how you came to that place in life where you feel the confidence to do something like that, because it's a very brave and, let's be clear, huge undertaking.
He's right, and it's almost overwhelming, to be honest. The task has been beyond anything that I've done in terms of time and work. I fell in love with the Torah, the first 5 books, as a young man. I realized I really loved these 5 books. And I write in Genesis, or I think, I don't know if, I write in one of the 2 books, but I think it's in Genesis. I don't believe in the Torah because I believe in God. I believe in God because I believe in the Torah. And a Christian could say the exact same thing, just substitute the word Bible, is fine. Or you could say Torah, it doesn't matter. Either way is good for a Christian. It's so great, it's so ex nihilo. The Bible is so ex nihilo, out of nothing. I regard the Bible the same way I regard creation. There is no human explanation. There's no natural explanation for the universe. There is no natural explanation for the Bible. It came out of nowhere. And you could look it up now because it just came out on the Jerusalem Post. I gave 15 reasons why I believe the Torah is from God, and which is amazing that the Jerusalem Post published it because it's a secular, but it's a big deal because the world Jewry reads that. But
Did you say world Jewry?
World Jewry.
I thought you had to be like a member of the KKK to say that. World Jewry.
Yeah, oh, that's very funny. Yes.
No? Am I wrong? People never say world Jewry. People never say Jewess. There's certain words that you just don't say them anymore.
Okay.
So world Jewry. Okay. Can I say that?
You have a fertile mind. There is no question. It is a term that Jews would use, world Jewry. It looks like I spoke.
But can a goy use that term without getting looks? I wouldn't, right?
No, depends on the guy.
I don't
do
think
we
so.
trust the guy? What kind of guy is he? Does he do? Will he light a fire for a Jew on the Sabbath?
Wow.
It's a lot of questions on whether we trust that guy.
Are you on the Sabbath? Are you allowed to blow the shofar?
No.
Is that true?
That is true.
You're not.
Right.
So you get a goy to blow the shofar?
That is hilarious.
I know. They didn't get it because a lot of the goys here, they don't know what we're talking about.
That is
They go to very buttoned-up churches. They don't know what the heck a shofar is. And shame on yous all. Shame on them all. Shofar. All right.
When you go from
left?
Peterson to Metaxas, you have spanned the possibility of human existence.
I will never debate.
If you and Jordan were on an island for a month, it would be fascinating to see how you came out.
I'm not kidding. I would love to have a conversation with him because he said a number of things today, theological things, that you, in your really tremendous self-discipline, allowing him to talk, it was wonderful. But it was. He
said certain things that go against normative theology? Like what?
That lean against normative theology. When he said the question, right? You asked, you believe in God, and he gave you an answer that was a non-answer. It was very interesting, but he said, in effect, right? Now Bonhoeffer. Now I wrote a biography of Bonhoeffer, and Bonhoeffer typifies this view, and I have spoken about this very much. So when he said this, it resonated with me. The idea that we don't care what you say you believe, and God doesn't care what you say you believe. He cares how you live, because by how you live, you show him exactly what you believe, right?
Right.
You can't fool him by saying, go to my church website, and there's a statement of faith, and that's what I believe. Are you living it out?
Right.
Okay, so I get that, right? But to then make the step, but I wouldn't dare say that I believe in God in a sense, because it puts this impossible burden on me to perform the labors of Hercules, otherwise I'm a hypocrite. I would have loved to tease that out, because I think he's messing up and missing grace and a number of things.
He's too self-lacerating. Everyone who the handful of people, let's say they're a handful who truly believe in God, will still sin. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, that's exactly right.
Right,
I mean, that's
I agree.
Christian
Your point
and
is well
doctrine.
taken. He's too hard on himself. He wouldn't say he's a good person. Okay, he is a good person, but good doesn't mean perfect. And that is by the way, though, this is a challenge to Christians, because Christians believe, the normative Christian theology is that no Jew or no man could fulfill the law, and therefore Christ's sacrifice was necessary. But that's making a demand that is as unrealistic as Jordan's was. Judaism and the Torah never believed that anybody could perfectly fulfill the law. That's the reason that we do penitence. It's a given. The Torah understands you can't keep this all. You have to just try.
Although, I guess that's the reason you have animal sacrifices,
Right.
correct?
Animal
It's not a joke,
sacrifices,
right?
though,
Right?
are all for inadvertent sin.
Uh-huh.
If you and all against God. If you didn't keep the Sabbath properly, if you didn't keep the holy day properly, etc. But if you steal from your fellow man, you can't bring a sacrifice. It has nothing. The sacrificial system has nothing to do with the moral sphere. Only the holy sphere, only the religious sphere.
So what is a Jew supposed to do if they sin intentionally and they know it? What do they do?
Well, then there's an elaborate process of, well, it depends. Sin intentionally against God or sin intentionally against man?
We'll say both.
Okay, so if you intentionally break the Sabbath and you think you were wrong afterwards, there are people who will intentionally break the Sabbath and they, I don't care, fine. But so that's not an issue. You didn't really think you sinned then. But if you come to the belief that you really did sin, you worked on the Sabbath, let's say.
Let's take a simple example, like
Okay.
the simplest example in the world. You cheat on your wife, and you know you
Right.
did wrong,
Right.
and you're eaten up by the guilt. What do you do? It was not unintentional. It wasn't a mistake.
Correct.
But you're sorry. What do you do?
Well, so Judaism has an elaborate, Maimonides, the greatest Jewish philosopher, has a whole elaborate 10-step program. First, you acknowledge that you did wrong. Then you tell the person that you've done wrong to exactly what you did. You can't say, the modern phraseology, if I hurt you, is nonsense. You have to say, I did hurt you by doing X, Y, and Z. That's the next thing. Then you have to be sorry for it. You have to ask forgiveness for it. In some cases, you will have to pay some fine for it to a person. If you stole their bicycle, you will have to pay something. And finally, he has a very interesting thing. To really know if you repented, you have to be put in the exact same position a second time and pass the test.
What century was Maimonides?
11th.
Okay. What happens if you do that in the 10th century?
Okay, no, I know what you're saying. Yes.
You commit adultery in the 10th
you're
century.
Right.
Now what do? Maimonides isn't around yet. Now
That's
what?
right. You commit it again. It was a very happy century, the 10th century. You happen to have picked one of the happiest centuries in Jewish history. It's a
Unbelievable.
very interesting question.
It's incredible. It's beautiful to live guilt-free,
This is
isn't it, Dennis?
Metaxas' next book, Why Jews Love the 10th Century.
Wow. I guess part of this is so fascinating for me because I'm getting to learn a little bit about
Wait
Jewry.
a minute, I'm busy laughing at your question.
What?
I'm still laughing at your question. What did they do if they committed adultery before Maimonides?
Well,
okay, we have laws in the Talmud that are 1,000 years
That's what
earlier
I'm
than
saying.
Maimonides. Yes,
I'm just
giving
curious.
you the guy who he is the guy who codified Jewish law, but Jewish law pre-existed him. But if you're asking, was there a modus operandi for seeking forgiveness?
Right.
Of course there was.
Well, I assume there was, but I'm just not. I'm just wondering what it was.
The major issue, which is as long as we know Judaism exists, is if you hurt your fellow man, you go to your fellow man, and then you go to God. This is one of the only normative Jewish beliefs. In other words, across the board, Reform, Orthodox, Conservative. If you hurt your fellow man, you can't ask God for forgiveness until you got it from that person that you hurt.
Wow.
Yeah. That is why, by the way, there's a very interesting book out there called The Sunflower. And it's Wiesenthal, the great Nazi hunter. This is I'll be very quick because it's a long story. This is a true story. Wiesenthal, as a prisoner of the Nazis, was taken out of line on a horrible prisoner work line in the Czech area, in Czechoslovakia, taken to a Nazi. A Nazi soldier was dying from war wounds, young guy. He said, I want to just talk to a Jew. I burn Jews alive. I feel horrible for what I did. I need to have forgiveness from some Jew before I die. Wiesenthal listened and said nothing and walked out of the room. He then posed the question to Jewish and Christian theologians, I was honored to be one of them, and asked them, did I do the right or wrong thing? And all the Christians said he should have forgiven. And virtually every Jew said, you can't forgive on behalf of others. Only the others can forgive. So this was a fascinating arena
But I got a little
of difference.
tip for you. Speaking as a Christian, all those Christians were wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, it's stupid. I mean, you can't. It's not your job to. And this is a little complicated. We could both write essays and talk for a long time about that. But no, it's. You met Simon Wiesenthal.
Did I meet him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
In Vienna. Wow is right, and you can't imagine. I so deeply regret not having taken a picture with him, but I always felt funny asking people to pose. It was stupid of me. I would treasure such a picture. I met him in Vienna.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I'm such a jerk. I got a. I'm gonna forget now. Hold on. So would you have felt guilty because he's the great Simon Wiesenthal and he went through that to get a picture with him? You'd feel self-serving?
Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm enough of a jerk. I got a selfie with Elie Wiesel. Yeah,
Yes.
just because I thought
that was a very smart thing to do.
Well, it was. There was chutzpah involved.
When people ask me, and they do, as Jordan, I have similar experience. My wife knows that. She's with me. People come over for selfies. I never resent it. And by the way, I am proud to tell you, I don't think there was a single posed photo of me, and there were tens of thousands, where I'm blinking. I feel such a moral obligation to keep my eyes open for your one picture with me that you will never see an eyes closed posed picture of me.
That sounds prideful to me. That you're, and I think you need to repent of the pride.
See, you should have said that sounds nice to me.
No,
that's
it
really
does.
Nice.
It does sound nice, but the fact that you're telling a full room of your fans really takes it away, takes the niceness away. It's you have your reward here. You're not going to get it in heaven. So, Yes. All right.
This is another area, but I have more fun with Jews and Christians than probably any living human being, because I am truly immersed in Jewish life and in Christian life. I work for Christians. I speak in churches. My audience is so overwhelmingly Christian, yet, of course, I'm a committed Jew. I helped found a synagogue. And so a little synagogue, because I publicized that it would get to be a big synagogue, and we like it little. But I get a big.
So cigars in the synagogue?
Sorry?
Are you allowed to smoke cigars in the synagogue?
No, we don't. I don't smoke on the Shabbat because it's the only law, the only specifically prohibited act on the Sabbath is lighting a fire. And
Can
that
you smoke in there on a Wednesday?
Yeah, but nobody goes there on Wednesdays.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But you could, yes. It would be, but
now
not during services. During services, very few people smoke cigars. But I just wanted to tell you, this is it's a funny area. There are so many, obviously, I speak of Judeo-Christian values all the time. I believe in them. I promote them. If we drop them, our society is over. But there are some differences, especially in emphasis. So I know Christians have a much harder time saying good things about themselves than Jews do.
You're right, and I'm not joking, I've been very annoyed at many Christians for exactly that. Because look, I grew up in New York, so culturally I'm a Jew, all right?
That's correct.
And
yes.
And when I see Trump boasting and boasting and boasting, I don't have the kind of a problem with that a lot of people in the Midwest would have. Because I find it funny, and there is chutzpah, and there's something. But it is interesting. I feel that, again, that is bad Christian theology. In other words, Christians, everybody has their issues where they go overboard, and Christians can become over-pious and overly humble. And that takes me to a question that I wanted to ask you. Jordan Peterson said something, and I had to ask you about this. He said that the world is so tragic and dark and on and on and on, malevolent, that even Jesus on the cross had his moment, to quote the Rolling Stones, of doubt and pain, and had a moment of doubt because he quoted the first line of Psalm 22, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now, it is my understanding that traditional Jewish teaching is that when a rabbi, which Jesus was, quotes the first line of a psalm, he is in effect referencing the entirety of the psalm. Is that true? Have you heard that?
It's very possible. I have actually always considered that an admirable, actually an asset of the New Testament. It gives the New Testament, in my opinion, an argument for its authenticity. To have included a line that is uncomfortable to the believer makes it more, not less, authentic.
Okay, you're right, except there's tons of stuff like that, I think, in the Old and New Testaments, which is why I believe the Bible is the Word of God. But I think that in first century Palestine, if a rabbi spoke the first line of a psalm, he was in effect referencing for his students the whole psalm, which changes Jordan Peterson's point of view. I mean, what he said.
I think it's a stretch, but I don't think a Christian needs to defend it. Isn't Christian theology very much advocative of the belief that God came to earth to experience life as a human, as a man? So as a man, he would have said that. It's very painful to be crucified and not to see anything that you said fulfilled at that moment. I have come to save the world, nothing's happening, and I'm getting crucified. So as a man, it makes perfect sense he would say that. He wasn't saying that as the Son of God or as God. He was saying that as a man, which he was in Christian theology.
I agree with that. And I guess it just strikes me, just like when you read any of the Psalms, the idea is that David, in his prayer in the Psalm, or whoever the other psalmist was, they are working through the pain with God. So at first you say, my God, why have you forsaken me? And it goes on and on. But then it ends with realizing who God is and turning, in other words, you don't linger in that forever. Your faith eventually helps you speak to yourself in hope.
You may be right. I think if you choose a verse to say you mean the verse more than you mean the chapter. That would be my read.
Well, because I think it leads to some of the kind of theology when you say Christians are afraid to
on the pride issue?
To say good stuff or to be pride.
Right.
But that's where it comes from. You wouldn't know this, but there's a hardcore Reformed theology that hangs its hat on that verse and on a few other verses. I am a worm. No one has done good. No, not one. As though the whole Bible is in effect saying, unless you're hanging your head in perpetual guilt and shame, you're a hypocrite.
Well, there's a very good Old Testament antidote to it. It's a Torah antidote. There's a verse in the Torah that says that Moses was the most humble man on earth. It actually says that. Moses, and we ascribe this to Moses. Now, how? So Moses wrote, "I'm the most humble man on earth." But why not?
Wait a minute. That's hilarious.
I know. But I think it's an awesome lesson.
That is.
I don't see any problem in a humble person knowing he's humble.
And telling the world, I'm the humblest guy you will ever meet.
Okay.
I say it all the time.
The traditional answer is God dictated it to him, but nevertheless, okay, but there's a lesson to be learned there. You can know you're humble. Of course you should know you're humble. You're striving to be something, but you don't know if you're it, then it doesn't make sense to me. Would if you're a good violinist and somebody says, you're really a good violinist. Me? What are you talking about? No, I mean, there's nothing wrong. So I get a kick out of that because, people will say, someone like, you really got a great show, Dennis, on the radio. And I go, I agree. If I didn't agree, what the hell am I doing broadcasting? Hello, Dennis Prager here with a pretty crappy show today.
I think people would assume trying to make your alimony payments.
They're what? What? I didn't hear that. What was that?
I'm very glad you didn't hear it.
Bummer.
So listen. I have.
You're making my mother-in-law laugh. That is a good sign.
I'm trying.
That is a very good sign.
It says in Genesis 18:18. I looked it up this morning. I wouldn't have known where it was, but the idea, obviously, when the Lord is talking to Abraham, and he is going to make a people. He's going to make the Jewish people, the people of Israel, out of this one man's seed, and he says, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed by him. It's the Christian understanding that this is God's redemption plan. We have the fall, and then God creates a people for himself so that he can reach the nations, which is to say every people beyond Israel, but through Israel. How do you feel, how's that working out for you people?
Crappy. I spent a lot of time in the Genesis explaining this. The Torah is completely universal. Jews have tended to constrain that universality. And this is a tragedy of Jewish history. It's partially an inevitable result because people become more insular. It's just the human trait is to be insular. Look, we have neighborhoods in America, right? There's a Korean neighborhood in LA, there's a Chinese neighborhood, Japanese neighborhood, Armenian neighborhood, Jewish neighborhood, black neighborhood. I think it's terrible. I'm totally opposed to neighborhoods. I think it's a bad thing. We have two neighbors in our cul-de-sac, one's Korean and one's Arab. And it's terrific. That's the American dream. Doesn't mean you have to give up what you are, but people live with the same people, they become insular. It's true for
But I still.
So it's just I'm getting.
No, okay,
this is critical.
Go ahead.
I am getting back.
No, I know.
You've raised a very big deal to me. We Jews are supposed to be a blessing to the earth, or the world will be blessed through us. In other words, I believe the Jews or the Israelites, the Hebrews, are God's third attempt to make a good world. In effect, Christians would argue Jesus is the fourth attempt. If you will, Muslims would argue that Muhammad is the fifth attempt. Mormons would argue that Joseph Smith is the sixth attempt. That's why I don't laugh at any of these notions. They make sense to me because nothing seems to have worked. The world is pretty awful in so many ways. So God starts with the conscience. It doesn't work, right? People knew good from evil, but it was worthless. So he destroys the world, starts again with Noah. So he gives Noah a series of laws about murder and so on, about what not to do. That doesn't work. God's third attempt is, okay, now I'll choose a certain people, give them a lot of laws. They will be a light unto the nations, to use Isaiah's word, and through this people, the entire world will be blessed.
Okay, now there's no way that God could speak that and need to take another crack at it. If the word of God is true and Isaiah is God's prophet, which of course he is, it seems to me that is a true statement.
Right, and therefore?
Well, therefore, there can be no other fourth or fifth.
Oh,
or
I
sixth.
see what you're saying. So you're sort of challenging, therefore, me on saying,
well, what I'm saying is that
there shouldn't be a fourth. But I'm just telling you whether or not God is behind the fourth attempt. I am simply explaining that in my view, that is what happened. The world is still awful. God made this attempt. With the conscience didn't work. With Noah's laws didn't work. With choosing one people, that didn't work. So we're going to have.
It depends on what the point was. In other words, he chose one people, right?
Yeah.
Now Christians would say that he chose the Jews, and that out of the Jews he would bring his Messiah, and through that Messiah, the whole world would be led to worship the God of the Jews, which I would say is the case among Christians. The Christians worship the God of the Jews.
That's why I root for Christians. I'm a believing Jew who is rooting for Christianity to succeed. You are bringing the world to my Torah and my God. God bless you. That is exactly what I believe.
Right.
That is right. But here again, so many Christians didn't do that. There's even worse. There's a replacement theology. Jews schmooze. We're the new Israel.
Look, there's a lot of bad theology. We can't go into that. We've only got a couple of minutes left.
Just had to note it.
But okay, so
wanted to make you feel bad if I could.
I have to ask you.
Obviously,
now, by the way,
failed.
you know Jesus was a Jew, right?
No.
Yeah. Mary was Italian. You got to be clear on that. But I just have to ask you, because you've been around so much Christianity. You know more Christianity than most pseudo-Christians. And by the way, most people who call some Christians are in fact simply Gentiles, okay? They're not Christians.
Right.
But
okay.
I just have to ask you, because you're around so many Christians, do you think it could be possible that Jesus could be the Messiah of the Jews? Is it possible?
It is possible.
What about...
But that doesn't help. Let me explain something.
Wait a minute, you're saying it could be possible.
Yes, of course it's
possible. Okay, what about Menachem Schneerson? Could he be the Messiah?
Yes, that's possible.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I am not fixated on who is the Messiah. It has never been a big issue for me. And by the way, it's not been a big issue for most Jews in any event, because the issue, if the only claim for Jesus that Christians made was he was the Messiah, there would not have been a separated religion. You literally would have had Jews and Jews for Jesus. That's all it would have been. It would not have become a Gentile religion, which is what ultimately it became, with the smattering of Jews, obviously. That the issue was the divinity of Jesus and the Trinity. That is the arena of, that's where the separation into another religion came, not over the Messiah issue. Jews thought that what's his name? The revolt. Well, I know Shabtai Tzvi. Yeah. Well, here's one that nobody here knows.
The Maccabees.
Except, yeah, that's right. Judah the Maccabee. There was a lot of people that were regarded. Half the Jewish people, including many of its leading Orthodox figures, thought that a Turkish Jew named Shabtai Tzvi in the 17th century was the Messiah. So that didn't make a new religion. The Sabbatians, as they were known, and the non-Sabbatians. But it was the Messianic. By the way, just so you'll know, interestingly, my biggest difference with Christianity, because theology is theology. I have theological differances with some Jews, obviously. Christians have theological differences with each other.
And you're going to hear from them when this book gets published, I'm telling you right now.
Well, yeah, that may well be. I hope they read it, because I think it'll help. It helps Jews and Christians' faith. But I'll tell you, the issue for me is whether we are saved through works or not. That's the most important distinction. I do believe you're saved through. I think
Dennis.
God rewards people who do good.
Dennis.
Yeah.
You know what I hate?
No.
We're at a time I would kill to have that conversation with you.
We really should.
Can Marissa give us 5 more minutes or no?
Of course we have 5 more minutes.
Are we allowed 5 more minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Well, wait a minute. We have to take a vote. If you would like us to end in 1 minute and 35 seconds, applaud.
Go. No, I'm asking Marissa. She's the CEO. Okay? Please. If 5, why not 10? Real quick.
You really are Jewish. He really is Jewish.
No, this is so fascinating to me. You said about the works thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, this gets to what you were saying about Genesis. In other words, if the heart of Adam and Eve was already inclined to sin, then it wasn't the act of taking the fruit. It was already there in their heart, right? If the tree had disappeared as they reached for it, they still sinned in their hearts, right?
Right.
Okay, so works, the real issue of works has to do with your heart, not how much money you give to build a hospital wing. Because if you're doing that to get your name on the hospital wing, God says, you're not fooling me. You know, you did some good, but it's really about you. It's not about me or the people suffering in the hospital. So works and faith cannot really be cleanly separated. And so people can over-focus on faith, and Christians often do, and they make it sound like works means nothing, and I disagree with those Christians, and I would argue with them all day long, but I never get to do that. But the point is, I would say they're wrong, because just as Jordan Peterson said a couple of hours ago, every one of us understands that we can never do enough. We know that already. We can never do enough to please God, but the real issue is when Jordan Peterson said the other thing that he said about believing in God, and you kind of have to, you can't be a phony. That's kind of basically what he's trying to say, right? In other words, you say, oh, I believe in God, but you don't act like it, right? And all you're saying is you got to act like it, and God judges you on your actions. But I would say that, in fact, God does judge you on your actions because your actions reveal your faith.
Right. I think that's true for the believer, but we have to acknowledge that there are people who don't believe who do good.
Okay, but again, you're not interviewing me, but I would still say that those people, if it's real good that they're doing, they're still doing it from that same place.
Oh, yeah,
just because they don't name the God
but
of
not
the
to
book.
honor God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, look.
So we agree.
Here's the point, though. I just want to. I was totally honest with you about where my difference lies. But having said that, the number of wonderful human beings who are Christian believers that I have encountered in my life has been so powerful to me since as I said to Jordan, goodness is what matters to me. And it is so clear that it is their Christian belief that has brought them to that goodness. That of course there's authenticity to that belief. If I have a theological difference, that to me is so secondary to the fact that, look, that tree must be beautiful if it's produced this human being as a fruit of it. And the number of you who are just beautiful human beings has been a very powerful thing in my life. So how can I say it's not true? That I don't theologically have the same belief doesn't make it untrue. I don't think of it as untrue. Somebody asked me the other day, what if Jesus were resurrected? And I said, I hope he was. Why would I not hope that? And I wouldn't rethink my Judaism. I would believe that God had sent a message that, guess what? It doesn't end with death. That's the message anyway, right? And that's a great message. I hope he was resurrected. I'm a fan of the idea.
You hope that he was resurrected? I got good news for you.
Yeah.
He was.
Okay. There you go.
Now listen. I've got a quick... That's another cheap. That's just so cheap that I did that. We're at a time. Are you coming to New York this week?
I am.
You're going to be on my radio program.
I have a crazy day.
No. It's all settled.
Program anytime.
It's all settled. Your people have settled this.
No.
You can't come on my radio program?
I can, but I can't do it. I could do it from my hotel room. I can't do it live in your studio.
You can't come into the studio?
I'm not coming to the studios. No, it's too crazy a day. I go on Fox and Friends in the morning. I'm in Orlando that previous night. I do Fox and Friends in the morning.
I love the fact that you're explaining this to all these people here. Dennis, it's okay. It's okay.
I am explaining because I love you, and you know. Listen, nobody. I am the biggest supporter you have in the non-Greek Orthodox community.
The Greek. We won't go there, Dennis. If these people do not run to their computers, I am the
biggest Jewish supporter you have in La Cañada, California. I am the tallest Jewish supporter you have in America. So, I'm special to you, my friend.
In America.
Yeah.
Wow. If these people don't run to their computers and go to Amazon and get this book, I will have failed, and you can't let that happen. I am so grateful.
Give Eric Metaxas a hand. You are great, Eric. You are really great. Thank you all. Mwah. Thank you. Thank you. It was a great session. It was great. This terrific. This was great.